Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to another realistic fiction writing lesson. Now, I have created this anchor chart, and if I had my classroom, I would have put this on big chart paper. I would have worked with the class to come up with these, and we would have stuck it up on the wall, and we would have referred back to it. But I just made this one on my own. I shared it with you through our lesson plans, so you can get it there, you can print it out, or just look at it on the computer. I just wanted to talk a little bit about it because it's really important that we follow these steps before we write our realistic fiction book. So step one is you think of a character, and I think most of us have already done this. So I loved reading your realistic fiction stories. You started your first ones. Remember this page where you created a character. My character's name was Matt, and he hated writing, and that was his first story about how he hated writing. So a lot of you already did step one, so don't worry about that if you have your character. Step two is the most important step, in my opinion. You need to plan your story. Before you start writing, you really have to plan what you're going to write. So let's look. When you plan your story, you come up with a setting for your story. That's the where and the when. What type of trouble will your character get in? So you think about your problem, and remember the sheet that you did before where you came up with possible problems? Think about a problem your character can get in. Then you're going to think about how your problem starts and gets worse. Remember, your problem's going to start, it's going to get worse, and then finally you'll have a solution, and that's how the problem goes away, and that's how your story ends. Lastly, you think about what you will write on each page before you begin. So before you do any writing, you have to plan. And this sheet here, which we did last time, and I shared it with you again, is a great way to plan out your story. Now, I like to think of each one of these boxes as its own page. Don't worry if you just do this page and don't even start your story. This is really important. You need to plan your story before you start writing. So if this is the only thing you do, then that's okay for today. So I already did a new story with my character, Matt, and I will show you what I put. So I thought of a problem where Matt would get poison ivy, and I wanted to change my setting and do it outside this time. So if you did a setting that was outside last time, maybe try to do an inside setting this time. Maybe mix it up because you're going to do a whole realistic fiction series. So you're going to write lots of stories, and it's good practice. Plus, I like to talk about the outside setting. I think I can use a lot of descriptive language. So I chose to make this story outside. So Matt, he went to the park to pick Courtney her favorite flower, a purple lily. Now remember your sheet where you came up with family and friends. I had a best friend, Chris, for my character, mom and dad. Courtney is another friend of Matt's. The Nan and the Pop. Kirby, the cat, might be in one of my stories. So Courtney is going to be in this story. The next story I may do about Kirby or my parents. So remember, you can have other characters. You did that sheet before. So I'm going to set the scene and introduce my character. Matt's going to go to the park to pick Courtney her favorite flower, a purple lily. Now, I've already thought of my problem and my solution and how it gets worse. So you have to make sure that you know what your problem's going to be, and you're going to know how your problem gets worse, and you'll know your solution before you even start writing. So again, if you only do this page or even some of this page, that's okay. So he's going to see the flower, and it's going to be surrounded by an oily leaf that he doesn't know is poison ivy. And then it's going to get worse because he's going to get poison ivy all over when he picks the flower. And then when he gives it to Courtney, she's going to get poison ivy too. And then it'll be solved by putting some lotion on the skin, and Courtney's still going to love her flower, and then the poison ivy will go away. So I've already thought all of this through, and I have 5 pages that I can write about. But right now, I want to focus on setting the scene and introducing my character. But before you start writing, make sure you have an idea of what your story is going to be about. So what I did was I took what I put in the first box and wrote it down. Matt went to the park to pick Courtney her favorite flower. You may just say, all right, Mr. K, my setting is the park. Done. I have my character, Matt, and I introduced him and said what he's doing. He's going to go to the park and pick Courtney her flower. That's a great start. So now what do I do? And you'll hear me say this all the time. You need to stretch your story out. And what I mean by that is add detail, use your senses, and describe exactly how your character feels, exactly what's going on. Take it one small step at a time. This is a great start, but I can add more onto this. So we know the setting is the where and the when. I have the where, it's the park. I don't have the when. So I'm going to say it's springtime. Now I'm stretching my story out. It was a perfect spring day. Now I have the when, not just the where. All right. How else could I stretch my story out? I could stretch it out by using my senses. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? So what is a perfect spring day if you're at the park? What do you think you hear? I think I hear birds because the birds make lots of noise on a perfect spring day. So I'm going to say the birds were singing. And what did it feel like? A perfect spring day is probably sunny. So the sun was shining. And what does it look like? Well, Matt is going there to pick flowers, so and the flowers were blooming. Notice how I didn't just say, Matt went to the park, next page. I stretched it out and I talked about what it was like at the park. What did it sound like? Well, the birds were singing. That's what it sounded like. What did it feel like? The sun was shining. What did it look like? There were flowers blooming. You could have even said things like the air smelled like spring, or the spring, you could smell springtime in the air. You could have talked about it tasted the spring, the taste of spring. Maybe you could have said something like that if you wanted to try to use taste. Or maybe you could have had food, a springtime food, or you were picking the wild blueberries that were growing in the spring. So you could try to use the taste and the smell, even though those are a little bit harder. So I did what I hear and what it felt like and what I saw. Now, this is a great start. I have my where and my when. I introduced my character, who is Matt, and what he's doing. This is a great start. I'm going to add one more thing. I'm going to make Matt talk. And we talked about this a little bit, so we're going to practice this more. So I'm going to have my character come to life a little bit. And that's something I'm going to want you to practice. Can you make your character talk? So Matt's going to say, Courtney will love a purple lily. Matt said. And do you think he said it happily or angrily? No, he said it happily. So he said it with a smile. So he's smiling, he's happy. Notice how I haven't really talked about my problem yet, because this is the first page. I don't want you to start talking about your problem yet, unless you want to hint at it at the very end, but you don't have to. Matt said with a smile. And what's Matt? He's smiling and he's walking, right? Let's bring him to life with a smile. as he skipped down the path. I wrote a lot here. I wanted to show you how to stretch your story out, bring your character to life by making your character talk, making your character move. He's skipping, making your character smile. He's doing something. This is bringing him to life. Right now, everything seems pretty good. The next step is we're introducing the problem. And remember, I've already thought out all of this. So don't start your story until you think out all of these boxes and write these in. What's the problem going to be? How does the problem get worse? And then how does it get solved eventually? This is a really important page I want you to work on. If you have any trouble, you reach out and ask me for questions. I can't wait to read your realistic fiction stories, and I will talk to you soon.